Alright, welcome to another episode of Seth Talks. Feels kind of weird to call it an episode, it's not really a show, but I guess it is. I'm going to be talking about Xenoblade Chronicles, specifically the definitive version of the game. This game is rad. Stay tuned at the end of this video for a channel update. I'm going to be doing some things in the future. This is, for all intents and purposes, going to be the end of Season 1. I'll let you know at the end of the video what to expect in the future from the channel. Alright, so first, I'm going to start with the good. And like I said before, the first bullet point that I have here is I'm going to be talking about the definitive version of the game, but I haven't played the extra story that's exclusive to this version, so you can think of this as just all of this applies to the vanilla version of Xenoblade Chronicles as well. First, I gotta talk about the battle system, which is pretty divisive. This game is basically a single-player MMO, but it's also a JRPG at the same time. And then my next bullet point, I just have to remind myself kind of how to explain the battle system because it's so dang complicated. I typed up, explain some basics like aggro, critical hits, the party gauge, why teamwork is so important. Yeah, and the battle system seems like any MMORPG battle system at first glance, but it isn't. For those that don't know, MMOs kind of have this battle system going on where your character kind of automatically attacks, and what it's your job to do is to use different skills that have reload times and use them in a strategic way so that the opponent's numbers go down faster than yours do. If you've ever played World of Warcraft or even just RuneScape, it's kind of like that, which seems weird to be the battle system of a JRPG, but what sets this apart is that it really runs into teamwork, which a lot of JRPGs do. So yeah, the game throws you in, and it gives you Shulk, and it gives you Rein, and the first thing that lets you know is that Shulk is kind of a glass cannon. He can do some good attacks, but he's also going to die fast. Rein is a tank. He can do some good attacks, and he's got high defense, but not much else. So the game uses that to explain to you the aggro system, which is the player that is doing the most damage or is causing the most annoyance to an enemy will make that enemy attack that particular party member. So between Rein and Shulk, the game lets you know right away that it's Rein's job to use his skill Taunt and also do a lot of damage so that Shulk can use his arts. And this is what makes it different than other MMOs, is you can actually walk around the battlefield while attacking, and hitting different positions of the opponent will do more damage, especially when you're playing as Shulk. So you're going to want the opponent to turn around and look at Rein so that Shulk can use backslash, walk over to the side and use air slash. Certain attacks do critical hits when you hit the opponent in the right position. So that's why aggro is important. And why getting those critical hits is important and doing that properly is because getting critical hits, which you can force in this game, fills the party gauge. And when you fill the party gauge, then you can do one of two things. This game has different magic, but it has healing magic, but it doesn't have revive magic. So the party gauge, for one, you need to use the party gauge, a third of the party gauge, to heal people, or to revive people if they get incapacitated. And secondly, the party gauge is used to do chain attacks, which is Shulk's Final Smash in Super Smash Bros. When you do chain attacks, you basically stop time and can individually control all three of your party members at the same time, and you can combo different arts and do really sick high damage attacks to the opponent. And you basically want to set up your team so that they'll have the most chemistry with one another to get chain attacks as often as possible, and so the chain attacks can have the highest damage multiplier possible. Because everyone has different attacks, and attacks of the same color can multiply damage up to, I think, 6 times in the chain attack. So if you do a red art 6 times in a row between your party members, you are going to multiply the damage. And the amount of chain links that you can do, so you can do attacks over and over again, depends on the level of friendship, which is another element in the game. And if you have max friendship, you can find yourself getting a combo up to 15 with a max multiplier for 10 of those, potentially. And that's just the very basics of the game. And you can control anyone, by the way. A lot of people just stick to playing as Shulk, but you can play as any of these characters, equip them in many different ways, and maybe I just over-explained things, but I think it's really important. I consider myself a really open gamer, I suppose, and this combat system isn't going to be for everyone, and for me, it didn't seem like I'd like it at first, but believe it or not, the more complicated it gets, the better it gets, because the more agency it feels like you have, and you don't feel like you're just watching your characters swing their weapons, but you're actually doing real-time combos, and you feel super cool. This is probably the most complicated game that I like, considering the types of games that I usually tend to enjoy. So make of that what you will. This game really caught my attention. The next thing I have here is that this game is massive, and I put massive in all caps. I honestly can't believe this is a Wii game. This game is gigantic. And then I also wrote down, explain the Affinity Chart, side quests, and world size. Yeah, the world size goes for itself. This game is made by a company called Monolith Soft, and when Nintendo was making Breath of the Wild, partway through development, they asked Monolith Soft to help them make the world, because Xenoblade Chronicles world is just so massive. So, if you want a testament to how immersive the world is, just keep that in mind. Another connection to Breath of the Wild that I've never heard anyone talk about, one of Breath of the Wild's most extensive side quests is the building of Terrytown. And what you do in Terrytown is you invite people to help build a town, and you actually put a new location on the map. Xenoblade Chronicles did that first, and I'm wondering if Monolith Soft made that side quest because they've already done it before. And I've never heard anyone theorize that, but it's even more in-depth in this game, too. You can actually go around the world and invite people, and not just people that will work on the town, but just people in general. And it's super cool, and it makes the world feel more like a lived-in place when you can actually see people from the different colonies migrate from one location to the other and see all of their relationships. And that's where the Affinity Chart comes into play. In the center of the Affinity Chart, you can see which characters in your party like each other, and when your characters like each other more, you're more likely to get chain attacks with that combination of party members. And then you can also see what each individual colony within the world thinks of you. And the more side quests that you do, the more in favor you will find yourself with all of these little societies and cultures. And you can even see, it's like a spiderweb grid where you can see the relationships that you've helped with one another. So you can see two people from one town on the chart, and there will be a line connecting those two characters, and it says they're mad at each other. But then you do the side quest, and it says they're happy with each other, and it's because you've done that. So you can actually see every single named NPC in the game is on this chart, and it's ridiculous. So yeah, I can't believe this is a Wii game. All that being said, my next bullet point is that the story in this game is absolutely ridiculous, because it is. And I won't spoil it, but I'll give you the setup. The game throws you into, an opening. A long time ago there were two giant titans, the Bionis and the Mechonis. The Bionis is, organic life, represents organic life, and the Mechonis represents machines. And a long time ago, they stood in an endless ocean, as far as the eye could see, and they fought each other to a standstill. Now they both died standing up, and their remains, their carcasses serve as these continent or planet-sized worlds, and the machines live on the dead body of the Mechonis, and the humans and the other organic races live on the body of the Bionis. And you get thrown into this game, the Mechons attack, and a tragedy strikes. So Shulk and his best friend Ryan go on an adventure for revenge that ends up becoming so much more than revenge. And the story has so many twists and turns that even though Smash Bros. Spoiled a couple of things that happened in the story for me, I was still surprised at everything that kept managing to surprise me. This game is 75 hours long, and something surprised me in the last 20 minutes. The surprises keep on coming. This game's narrative is actually pretty darn good. I think it suffers from something that a lot of shonen anime and a lot of other JRPGs in general suffer from. I think it suffers from having weirdly explicit dialogue. They don't leave quite as much to the characters' emotions. They don't leave as much as that up for interpretation and imagination as I find a lot of American literature and media does, which is something that I'm not sure if that's a Japanese thing in general. I'm sure there's a lot of more mature Japanese material that I just haven't seen, but I'm really into when characters don't literally just talk about their feelings and like share flashbacks and stuff, and they could leave a little bit to the imagination. I kind of wonder what's up with that in JRPGs and anime, but the narrative and the plot and the world building are all spectacular. And that was my next bullet point. The world building is some of the best I've ever seen. The title of this video, I don't know what I'm going to title this video yet. I'm just talking. I was originally going to title this video, "The World Building of Xenoblade Chronicles is Absurd." I don't think that's going to be the title, but that's how amazing it is. I think short of having its own language and a few other things, it's almost like Lord of the Rings level of in-depth. They explain everything. My next bullet point is the following. Oh, here's some negatives. So, in order to make the whole Affinity Chart work, there needs to be a ton of side quests, and there are a ton of side quests. I think I looked it up and there's like over 400. Like 90% of them are just simple monster quests, like go kill this monster, go do this thing. And it's nice when you find a side quest that isn't kinda because most of them are, admittedly. And the best way to get these side quests done is something that I wouldn't do in any other game, but the best thing to do is like you find a new colony, just talk to everybody and collect as many of the side quests as you can, and then after that, they'll all be filled up into a list. And then when you go out into the next area, you'll accidentally do a few of them, at least a few of them. And that's not something I would ever do in any other game because I would just lose track of all my tasks. But this game has so many tasks that doing them one by one would take an eternity. And this game almost suffers from having too much to do. And a lot of that isn't particularly amazing content. It's fine content if you just feel like running around the map and finding objects or battling enemies, but yeah, you might as well just collect the side quests as you go and just do stuff. Some side quests get lost to time, making 100% completion without a guide pretty dumb. There are a few points in this game where certain elements in the story make certain side quests, like, it doesn't make sense if they could still exist anymore. And that doesn't happen once, I think that happens 3 times. And that was a big complaint in the original version, so that in the definitive version, if a side quest is going to be incompletable at a certain point, there is a clock symbol next to it to show that you should do it right away, but that doesn't really help that much. It's just a band-aid on the problem, and this isn't the type of game I would complete 100% anyway, because the sheer amount of content, I'd rather move on to the next thing, but it's definitely noteworthy, and a lot of people found it worthy of complaining. Let's see what else. What is our next bullet point? I think this game is a bit overly long, especially near the end. A lot of JRPGs seem to do this for whatever reason. Yeah, I just said it's 75 hours, and it's pretty briskly paced throughout. It's always throwing something new at you for the most part. But I don't know, I feel like a lot of JRPGs have this whole mindset where they're like, alright, so the player has approached the final dungeon type area. We've got to make the dungeon super long and put a boss rush in there. It's got to be an amazing grand finale. But I feel like in the context of RPGs, that always makes the ending kind of annoying because you've spent an entire game grinding levels and finding optional content. When you see the ending coming, it should probably just come. It should probably just approach. I didn't get that feeling in this game as badly as I did Persona 5. I'm sorry, I said something negative about Persona 5. Apparently, I'm not allowed to. That game was bloated. And so is this game. I think that travel in this game is a little boring. I wish you could move around the world in a more fun or faster way. I think most of my favorite games in the past few years, Super Mario Odyssey, Spider-Man for PS4, Breath of the Wild, they've been these big open world games where traversal is fun. And I think in the case of Super Mario Odyssey and Spider-Man 4, those games, I actually 100%ed both of those games. And I don't run 100% games super often, but in those games, I happily did it. It didn't feel like a chore even near the end because the movement in those games is so darn fun. I 100%ed them because I just wanted to keep playing for as long as possible because I thought it was fun. Breath of the Wild, I 100%ed it in the sense that I found all the shrines. But no, I didn't actually 100% that game because there's so much to do. Movement isn't that type of fun in Breath of the Wild, but I like how movement is tied into the progression. The more you play the game, the more Link can run and climb and glide, and there's always something to discover. Literally every maybe 20 feet or something, you'll find either a Korok or a little mini game or a shrine. And it's weird because the land looks like it's more barren, but there are secrets everywhere. So that game, the method of traversal wasn't fast, but it was fun, especially when you can shield surf. And in Xenoblade Chronicles, I feel like, imagine playing Breath of the Wild, but you can't do anything except go at a brisk jogging pace. It's like between the pace of the walk and the run. That's the only type of movement in the entire game, even though the environments are almost the same size, like they're huge. So the land seems unnecessarily large, and I wish that you could just, I don't know, drive a car through it, or something like that. They have Jeeps. You find a kid near the beginning of the game, you need to fix his Jeep. Why can't I drive his Jeep? I don't know. This game would be sick if it was multiplayer, though. I kind of wish that it was, because a lot of the draw of the game comes from the fact that it's like an MMO, but it's single player, but it's also kind of like a JRPG with its party system. And I wish the party system, you could work together using it with friends. That would be so amazing. I kind of want Monolith Soft to work on something like that. That would be cool. Another positive, this game is the music is frickin' incredible. I actually wrote it like that. Frickin' incredible music. Not sure which version of the soundtrack I prefer. Now this is something interesting. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition remade the soundtrack from scratch using a live orchestra, which the original version didn't have, at least for most of its tracks, I think. I'm not sure if this is an unpopular opinion, but I think sometimes the original version of the tracks are better. And the reason for that is because just because something is orchestrated doesn't mean it's performed optimally or mixed optimally. It sounds more authentic, but while authenticity is something you should go for in a game that has a lot of natural environments, this game's music is also very emotional, and sometimes I feel like the actual mixing of some of the tracks is just better in the original. You Will Know Our Names, one of the boss themes in this game, is one of the best video game songs ever, and I think the Definitive Edition version kind of ruins the impact. The reason why the original version of the song is so good is because this game lets you walk into high-level enemies, even if you're not ready. So if you accidentally see something at level 85 and you're level 15, You Will Know Our Names is going to come on, and the first 1 minute of that song is super dire. Oh no, I'm in trouble. That level 85 enemy is going to kill you in about 10 seconds, and you're not going to get to the victorious part of the song. You come back, you're just a few levels under-leveled, and you're struggling, and you make it, and you make it to the minute mark, and the victory trumpets come in. It's like, and then the guitar solo kicks in. And the cool thing about this game is when you're doing well, your characters encourage each other. So then the epic guitar solo comes on, and Shulk's like, all right, I'm feeling it. And you feel pumped because whereas before you found that higher level enemy and you didn't get to the victorious part of the song, now you make it about a minute in, and because you've survived for a minute, the music makes you feel cool. You've earned it. You've earned those victory trumpets, and you've earned that electric guitar. The definitive version of the song, the victory trumpets are so weak and muted in the mix comparatively, and that really bothers me. And then the guitar solo, while functionally the same, is performed slightly differently, and I think that sometimes having something pre-recorded studio quality is a little better if you want it to be pristine and express exactly what you want it to express, if that makes any sense at all. The other big song, Gower Plain. I like the original version of Gower Plain better, mostly because the bass line. I think most of the songs better with a live orchestra because it's made to be played with a live orchestra, but it also uses a standard electric bass guitar, and the bass line is more muted and different. It's not the same bass line, and I like the old bass line better. But then Colony 9, listen to Colony 9, that's definitely a glow up. Colony 9 is a total glow up in the definitive version. So is Engage the Enemy. So is a few other songs that are just total glow ups. So really, I feel like it depends on which version you prefer. You can toggle back and forth between the soundtracks. Sorry, I just talked about the soundtrack for like 5 minutes. I don't know how long that was. I like music. But the game, the quality of the music regardless in this game is, this music is fire. It's so good. I'm going to finish off this video with this bullet point. Some call this game a masterpiece. While I wouldn't say that personally, mostly because of my game preferences and the types of games I like to play, I actually don't think that's a ridiculous claim at all. I see where they're coming from. This game is incredible overall. And that just about says it. I think that if you've seen gameplay footage of Xenoblade Chronicles because you're curious about Shulk from Smash Bros, like I was, and you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I like that whole auto-attacking thing, find a way to rent the game or borrow it, because you might be right, you might not like it. But if you play the game for about 5 hours or so, and you get the third party members, so you get the whole 3-player experience and you're juggling and multitasking, get that far in the game, and there's a decent chance it'll suck you in and you'll experience one of the best games ever made. Like I said, it's not necessarily in my top 5 or top 10, but this game blows me away that this was on the Wii. This game is incredible, I feel, if I'm being objective, and I definitely did enjoy it. So Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is whack. I think everyone should try it before judging it. Now I'm going to take a couple of seconds to go and explain to you guys. There will probably be a video hiatus for a while here. I'm going to take some time to work on some more in-depth projects. Once this video is published, I'm going to put it in my Seth Stories and Seth Talks playlist, and I'm going to retitle it Seth Stories and Seth Talks Season 1. This is going to be, I'm going to think of this as the last episode of my first season of videos. I'm going to take some time to work on some personal projects. I also like to make music. With the world getting back into a normal state of being, I'm going to try to work on my personal business. I've got a lot going on. I may or may not buy a house this year, but I'm going to be working on videos in the background. And if I come out with music, I'll definitely upload it to this channel. Probably, maybe near the fall, I'll have multiple videos to upload, because that's good for the algorithm, just to upload a little more frequently. And they're going to be really high quality too. I'm thinking about contracting someone to get some really high quality thumbnails. I really want this to become something that I can confidently call a show. I'm thinking about doing a new format. I'm going to put my face in there. But I'm thinking about doing it in a more unique way. I want it to seem authentic. I don't want to seem like a generic YouTuber. I just want to be, if I was a YouTuber, I'd want to be the everyman. And my goal of this channel was to originally inspire people to be more than they can be. I think that it's really important to me that people know that they're worth something, and that the things that they care about are important. And that was what my first video about Celeste was all about. And I feel like maybe I've gone down a bit of a generic route just so I can keep talking about things. And at that point, I'm just talking about things. Although it's been good for my mental health to just talk about things on my mind either way. I want to make more videos like my Celeste video where I really bring the human experience out of video games or music or things that I like, which is what Season 2 is going to have. I want to have more episodes like that, because we all know what it's like to be human, and being human is an imperfect experience, but we can share those imperfections and grow together. So, yeah, I really hope that everyone who views this channel looks forward to Season 2. I think it's going to be really good. And pick up Xenoblade Chronicles while you wait, because you're going to get a lot of hours out of this game. So this has been an episode of Seth Talks. I'll see you guys when I see you guys. Take care and keep climbing.